After designing, installing, and servicing security systems for over 20 years, I can tell you the biggest mistake made when choosing a security system is this. Most homeowners don't buy the wrong system or choose the wrong brand. They buy the wrong design. And that mistake usually doesn't show up on day one. It shows up months later, after repeated false alarms, when people stop arming the system altogether. Let me explain. I ran a security and automation installation company for 2 decades, and I've been called in countless times to fix systems people stopped using, not because the system was broken, but because the system didn't fit how they lived. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 4 specific problems this design mismatch creates, and more importantly, the questions you need to ask before you buy any security system, whether it's a $200 DIY kit or a $5,000 professionally installed setup. Let's dive in. When you buy a security system without thinking through the design to lifestyle fit, here are the 4 ways this design mistake shows up in real life. Number 1, wasted money. You end up with a system that collects dust because it's too complicated, too annoying, or just doesn't fit how you actually use your home. Number 2, no upgrade path. You realize 6 months later that you need more sensors, different capabilities, or integration with other smart home devices, but the system you bought can't expand the way you need it to. Now you're looking at ripping and replacing the whole thing. Number 3, false alarm nightmare. And this is a big one. Your system triggers frequent false alarms because nobody helped you think through sensor placement. After a half dozen false alarms, maybe some additional fees incurred from false dispatches by your local authorities, you stop arming the system entirely. Number 4, failure when it matters most. The worst case scenario. The system fails to notify you or authorities during an actual emergency. Maybe because you turned it off after too many false alarms. Maybe because you didn't understand the monitoring options. Maybe because the design never accounted for the situations you actually needed protection from. All 4 of these problems come from the same root cause: buying based on features and price instead of design that matches how you actually live. So let's fix that. Here's the first question most people skip. What are you actually protecting against? Instead, they often start with, I want a security system. But that's not specific enough, because security system can mean wildly different things. Are you trying to detect unauthorized intrusion? Life safety threats like fire or carbon monoxide? Environmental issues like water leaks or temperature extremes? Or all of the above? Most systems can do all 3, but you need to know which matters most to you because it affects everything else. Let me give you a real example. I had a client who bought a DIY system from a mainstream brand, primarily because they were worried about break-ins while they traveled for work. It made sense. But what they didn't think through was this. They had 2 large dogs who basically had free roam of the house. The problem? They installed motion detectors in the main living areas. This meant every time the dogs moved around, the system would have triggered if they'd actually armed it. The result? They only armed the door and window sensors when they left, never the motion detectors, which meant they paid for motion detection they literally never used. Could this have been avoided? Of course. Perhaps with more pet-resistant motion detectors, or detectors positioned differently, or by using a different sensor strategy altogether. But nobody walked them through the design process. They just bought a popular system and hoped it would work. The second question catches almost everyone off guard. When do you actually need protection? Do you want protection only when the house is empty, or also when you're home? And if you want protection while you're home, do you want it while you're awake and moving around, or only at night when you're asleep in the bedroom? Most systems have multiple arming modes for exactly this reason. Away mode typically sets full protection with every sensor active because nobody should be home. Night modes typically arm perimeter sensors like doors and windows, but interior motion detectors are off so you can walk to the kitchen at 2 in the morning without triggering an alarm. Or if your home has a basement, maybe you want motion detectors in the basement to be armed overnight. Stay or day mode has maybe only entry points armed, allowing you to move freely inside. Here's why this matters. If you're someone who works from home all day, you probably can't arm interior motion detectors during work hours. So, if you bought a system that relies heavily on motion detection for coverage, you've got a problem. Or maybe you have kids who come home from school before you get back from work. They need to disarm the system. Do they know how? Will they remember? Or will you get false alarm calls at 3:15 p.m. every school day? These aren't hypothetical questions. These are real scenarios I've dealt with hundreds of times. The system design needs to match when you actually need protection and who will be interacting with it. The third question is where systems quietly fail. Okay, so your system detects something, a door opening, motion in a room, smoke from a potential fire. Now what? This is where the self-monitored versus professionally monitored decision comes in. And it's a bigger decision than most people realize. Typically, in self-monitored systems, an alert comes to your phone. You decide what action to take. And there are no monthly monitoring fees. Or if there are, they're very low. Sounds great, right? But here's just one example scenario most people don't think through. It's 3 a.m. Your carbon monoxide alarm goes off while you're sleeping at home. But carbon monoxide exposure makes you drowsy and disoriented. Will you be able to respond? And if so, how? Professional monitoring means a monitoring station receives the alert 24/7. An operator would attempt to contact you, and if they don't get a response, or if they get an unacceptable response, they can request a dispatch from your local authorities. Sure, it can cost anywhere from $20 to $50 a month, but response happens even if you're unconscious, out of range, or your phone is dead. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying you need to think through real scenarios. What if you're busy or traveling and miss the notification? What if your internet connection goes down, but your system needs an internet connection to communicate? Are you willing to pay for 24/7 monitoring for that peace of mind? Your answers to these questions won't be wrong, but choosing randomly without thinking it through, that's the mistake. Here's a bonus tip, something most security system shoppers never even consider. Your alarm system knows more about your home's occupancy than almost anything else. When you arm it to away, it knows nobody's home. When you disarm it, it knows someone just arrived. Motion sensors know which rooms are active. This makes a security system a perfect trigger for home automation. For example, arming to away may turn lights off or adjust thermostats to save energy. If you're coming home late at night and you disarm the system, maybe entry lights turn on automatically so you're never walking into a dark house. When a smoke alarm triggers, HVAC units can be shut down to prevent smoke circulation. Maybe hallway lights turn on to illuminate exit paths. These are just a few practical examples. Even if you don't care about automation today, you might in 2 to 3 years. So when you're choosing a system, ask, can this integrate with other smart home platforms? Can it be expanded? Or am I locked into a closed ecosystem? Replacing an entire security system just because it can't integrate is expensive and annoying. So let's recap. The biggest mistake homeowners make isn't choosing the wrong brand or spending the wrong amount. It's buying without thinking through these design questions. What am I actually protecting against? Intrusion, life safety, environmental? When do I need protection? Away only or home too? Day and night? How will I respond to alerts? Self-monitored or professional monitoring? Can the system grow with me? Is there any future-proofing or integration capability built into what you're buying? Answer those 4 questions before you start comparing Ring versus Simply Safe versus ADT versus a system installed by a local provider or small business. Because the quote-unquote best system for someone else might be completely wrong for you. This channel is about explaining smart home systems, including security alarms, home networks, and automation systems, the way professionals actually think about them. If that's useful to you, subscribe. I'm creating a whole series on smart home security systems, everything from design considerations to deep dives on monitoring options, all based on 20 years of real-world experience. If you've got questions, or if you've made one of these mistakes yourself, drop a comment below. I read them all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.